Our Las Vegas Grand Prix.
F1 driver ratings.
Cha-ching. Las Vegas. Are we ready to grade every driver from 0 all the way to 10 after probably using a lot of our mental and brain capacities trying to process how on earth that weekend ended? But we'll get into all of that because we're going to begin where we always begin. Gabriel Bortoleto. So we're kicking driver ratings off with a reasonably negative outlook because Gabby Bortoleto had a stinker of a weekend. I'm giving him a 1 out of 10. Poor qualifying. Of course, it was difficult qualifying, and the fact that he didn't crash is a good thing because it was very easy to do so. Albon was the only one to make a mistake in qualifying, from what I remember, at least a big mistake that meant he went into the wall. And then as for the race, a catastrophic error. I'm not even really giving him leniency with anything higher than a 1 because it was such a bad error that it genuinely put quite a bit of risk into turn 1 with how quickly he went barreling in there and cost a couple of drivers their races. Lance Stroll, of course. And yeah, it was just absolute carnage. And Bortoleto was not the only cause of it, but it was a big cause, and that's why I've gone for a 1.
Yep, I've gone for a 1 out of 10 for Bortoleto as well. A shocking weekend again, it has to be said. Poor quali compared to his teammate. That was his strong point this year, and it seemed to have. I know it's tricky conditions, of course, but yeah, not on the greatest run of form in qualifying, and then. I wouldn't even call it a rookie mistake. It was just a massive, massive error to go in that hot. Very good of him to go up to Stroll afterwards. I'm sure you've seen the video on social and apologise and everything, but of course doesn't affect his grade here, and it has to be a 1.
It certainly does. His average grade is absolutely tanking after the last 2 weekends, so it'll be interesting to see where he stacks up come the end of the year. The fans also gave Gabby a 1. Nico Hulkenberg started the race in 11th, finished 7th, and we will say as well, where everyone finishes, of course, been promoted due to the 2 McLarens being disqualified, if you hadn't heard the news.
I have gone for an 8 out of 10. For Nico Hulkenberg, qualified brilliantly again, start 11th, and of course, yeah, benefited from a couple of places, but even had that not been the case, 9th on the road, still a great result for the car he's driving, so I've gone for an 8.
I have also gone for an 8 out of 10 for Nico Hulkenberg. I think a very solid weekend, of course, finished 9th on the road, had better pace than Lewis Hamilton on the same tyres, which I don't think, probably says more about Lewis's weekend than it does Nico's, but not to take anything away from him. He was the star of the Sauber team, while his teammate was, poor in qualifying and poor in the race as well for all of the one corner that he survived. But Nico, yeah, maximised a lot of what I think was available this weekend. Potentially there was a chance to make it through to Q3 with those changeable conditions. Of course, missed out only just, but still scored a couple of points and a very good race from him. The fans gave him an 8 as well. Alex Albon started the race in 16th, did not finish. I am going to go for a 2 out of 10. 2 out of 10 for Alex Albon. Crashed in qualifying, cost himself a massive opportunity of getting... Carlos was 3rd on the grid. That tells you all you need to know about the potential that was in that car. And then the race itself as well was scruffy. You see it turn 1, lap 1. He basically hits Colapinto. I think it's a lenient thing to say that it was a tap. It was a rather large hit for Colapinto, who then was carrying damage for the rest of the race. Then he drives into the back of Hamilton with this front wing, which I deem to be Alex's fault, similar to how Hamilton did the same thing in Brazil, and we felt the same way there. About Lewis's responsibility to not drive into the back of a car. So overall, then not finishing the race. Of course, he didn't have team radio, which was, I think, the primary reason as to why he pulled into the pits, because he didn't want to be a danger to everybody else. But that aside, a poor weekend for Alex.
A very poor weekend. I've gone for a 2 out of 10 for Alex Albon. Shocking qualifying compared to his teammate, of course, had the crash. And then, in the race, continued to, make a mistake. Had, of course, the contact. What did feel very similar to Hamilton's move on Colapinto, where he pulled out too late going for the move. A very tough weekend for Alex, and he needs to turn his form around, because he's had a fantastic season, but the last kind of few races not gone his way.
It certainly has not. The fans gave Alex a 3 out of 10. Carlos Sainz started the race in 3rd, finished 5th.
I have gone for a 10 for Carlos Sainz. It's close between a 9 and a 10. I think I've given 10 for less this season, which is why I'm going for a 10. His qualifying in particular, absolutely unbelievable, and then got a great result in the race. Not the best strategy, I don't think, from Williams, and they were kind of unable to race near the front with the top cars, but he was 10 seconds clear of the rest of the midfield, and another brilliant job from Carlos.
I have gone for a 10 out of 10 as well for Carlos. Not really any doubt in my mind over whether it was anything less, because he's put a Williams P3 in an insanely difficult qualifying session. And then, he's finished 7th on the road, promoted to 5th after the disqualifications, but he was very comfortably there. It's annoying, you have the Hulkenbergs and the Sainzes that both put in very good performances, but no teammate to compare it to, because they were both out of contention or out of the race. So it makes it a little bit harder, of course, because the teammate is the best comparison, but I have to give him a 10, because I really don't know what more he could have really done in that scenario. The strategy might well have been a little bit on the conservative side, but realistically, I don't think he's beating any of those 6 cars that finished ahead of him on the road. So 10 from me. The fans gave him a 9. Isack Hadjar started the race in 8th, finished 6th. I have gone for... I'm going to go for an 8 out of 10 for Hadjar. He had some good pace. He was kind of on his own ahead of Hulkenberg. Of course, also gained from the fact of Lawson barreling into turn 1 a little bit too hot and hitting Piastri. But overall, I think it was still a very solid weekend from Hadjar. I think Lawson was absolutely on for a phenomenal weekend had he just got through turn 1, lap 1 cleanly. But that didn't happen, and Hadjar took full advantage of that, and I think I have to reflect that with an 8 out of 10.
I'm really struggling with this one. It's between an 8 and a 9. I'll go for an 8, mainly I think because I've given Hulkenberg an 8 as well, and I think they're kind of similar, finished similarly, and I do think the Racing Bull is obviously quite a decent car, and Lawson obviously did a better job in qualifying. So I'll go for an 8 out of 10 for Hadjar. Back to decent form though. Yes, he got beaten by his teammate, but a great result, of course, benefited from the McLarens again, but many more points to add to Hadjar's impressive tally this year. Very impressive.
Absolutely. The fans gave Isack an 8 out of 10 as well. Liam Lawson started the race in 6th, finished 14th.
I've gone for a 4 out of 10 for Liam Lawson. It's such a shame it's a what might have been, because absolutely brilliant qualifying again to put his car P6, and unfortunately for him, an error into turn 1. I'd say fortunate for him that it wasn't as bad as Bortoleto, but of course he actually was the one that came out worse of it because of his front wing, and then it all went wrong from there. So a very disappointing result for Liam after a great qualifying.
You've convinced me to go for a 4 rather than a 5. I was deliberating between the two, but look, at the end of the day, it was his mistake. He admitted it himself after the race as well. He just didn't expect the field to check up so much at turn 1. He wasn't trying to overtake, but it's still his responsibility to not cause a collision, and that's what he did. And Oscar Piastri was very lucky to still have all 4 wheels attached to his car with how large of a hit it was. Such a shame, as you say. Had a brilliant qualifying, and I genuinely think he had the match for Hadjar this weekend. But just overcooked it, and after that his race was completely done, and he finished 16th on the road and only ahead of Colapinto. The fans gave him a 5. Ollie Bearman started the race in 14th, finished 10th. I'm going to go for A 6 out of 10 for Ollie Bearman. In comparison to his teammate, actually not as shining as we've seen. Esti Besti has stepped it up this weekend for sure. But Ollie had a poor qualifying. He gained a lot of positions, but then from there on, after lap 1, where I think he was up in something ridiculous like 7th, and after everything that had gone on, but then he fell away from there, and then to finish behind your teammate after all of that was a bit surprising. So I'm going to go for a 6 because, of course, without the disqualifications, he wasn't going to score any points, and I can't give him higher than that.
I am going to go for a 7 for Ollie Bearman. It's close between a 6 and a 7 after what you've said. I do agree with, obviously, the qualifying didn't go to plan either. Had that moment where he was kind of a passenger waving his arms in the air as he was going into the wall, of course. But yeah, I think still fortunate to come away with a point and a decent job overall, but certainly not his best weekend based on how well he's been doing recently.
The fans gave Ollie a 7 out of 10. Esteban Ocon started the race in 13th, finished 9th.
I'm going to go for an 8 for Esteban Ocon. He's finished 10 seconds clear of his teammate. I know in terms of like his experience, we kind of think he should be, but I'm giving him credit for doing that because he has struggled as of late. P9 is a great finish in a Haas that I don't think was all that this weekend. And yeah, gone for an 8 for Esteban.
If the McLarens weren't disqualified, Tommy, are you giving Esteban Ocon an 8 for an 11th?
It's difficult, isn't it? But I was, no, probably not. Probably it would be...
That's why I went for a 6 for Ollie, because
true.
It gave me room to give a 7 out of 10 for Esteban Ocon, which is what I've gone for. Yeah, it's easy to look at the overall finish and go, 9th place, but he didn't finish 9th. He finished 11th, and then the disqualifications happened. Of course, some people go, yeah, but that McLaren with that 0.12 millimetre plank wear over the limit, that's making him a second a lap faster. It was not, spoiler alert. But look, I'm going to go for a 7 out of 10 for Ocon because I do believe that he deserves a higher grade than Ollie. I agree with you on that one, Tommy. He out-qualified him ever so slightly and then finished ahead of him by, nearly 10 seconds or 10 seconds. So for Esteban, a much better weekend. Love to see it from him because he has been on the struggle train. And I can't give Ollie and Esteban the same grade, so that's what I have gone for. The fans gave Esti Besti a 7 out of 10. Franco Colapinto started the race in 15th, finished 15th. For Franco, I have gone for a 5 out of 10. I know he's finished last, but he has received an Alex Albon front wing up his rear end on lap 1, turn 1, and from there on, just was struggling for grip. Once you lose that kind of downforce, you're in big trouble. So I can't downgrade him anymore just because he's finished 7 seconds off the back of Lawson in 16th, or which eventually turned 14th. So yeah, it's a 5 out of 10 for Franco. It's a shame.
Yeah, I've also gone for a 5 for Franco. Can't be too harsh on him because it wasn't his fault with the damage, of course. And as we've seen many times this season, once you get that damage, it's kind of game over right from the start. Unfortunately, with these era of cars, it's not the case that you can just change something and you're quicker again. It's kind of game over. So yeah, gone for a 5.
The fans gave Franco a 5 as well. Pierre Gasly started the race in 10th, finished 13th.
I've gone for a 6 out of 10 for Pierre Gasly. It's a big shame because I think could have been a really great race from Pierre Gasly. He's very good around here. That's why I went for the good surprise in the first place. Obviously, he got the Alpine into Q3, which is deserves a big amount of credit, but he got caught up in the Bortoleto dive bomb, of course, spun around, damaged his car, and then it's a case of what might have been. And I know... in my head, like he deserves more, but equally, like he's not barely done the race, so I can't give him a 7 just because he qualified well. So I've gone for a 6 for Gasly.
I really wanted to give him a 7, but I'm going to give him a 6 out of 10 as well. A nod to the qualifying. But I mean, literally, Alpine's race was over by lap 1, turn 1 for both drivers. They both picked up quite a bit of damage. 10 points of downforce loss was what Pierre Gasly was carrying. And it is a shame. I think he would have been absolutely fighting around the sort of 10th place mark. But sadly, Bortoleto just missed his breaking point, and that was that for Pierre Gasly's race. The fans gave him a 5. Lance Stroll started the race in 12th, did not finish. It's going to be a 5 out of 10 for Lance Stroll. Can't give him any higher. I know he's got wiped out by literally on lap 1 by Bortoleto. Didn't put any kind of qualifying performance, which actually was on the table this weekend. Didn't put anything like that down because of the intermediates decision. So it's a 5. It's a shame for Lance, of course. He didn't seem all that bothered, old Lance. He's like, sometimes it happens, it is what it is. Off I go to my yacht.
Yeah, I've gone for a 5 for Lance Stroll as well. A weekend to forget. He was looking so good in that wet qualifying, and the decision to go for Inters was absolutely crazy. Yeah, as you said, he's kind of feels like he's checked out this year, hoping that next year with that Adrian Newey performance, he might enjoy things a bit more. Because yeah, we even saw in qualifying, didn't we, that he was basically like, oh, I don't really care about the getting blocked by Carlos, you're fine. And obviously Carlos didn't end up getting that penalty, which we thought was slam dunk. But yeah, it was all over for Stroll on lap 1, turn 1.
It was another driver's race ruined on lap 1. The fans gave Lance a 5. Fernando Alonso started the race in 7th, finished 11th.
I've gone for a 6 out of 10 for Fernando Alonso. He qualified well, but didn't really work out for him in the race. Dropped kind of down the order. He was actually racing, nearest the front of the start, and looking quite racy, but kind of tumbled back, and it didn't go his way. So I've gone for a 6.
I've also gone for a 6 out of 10 for Fernando. He almost got a 0 after watching the lap 1 replay. I didn't realise until doing my grades and having a look at each driver. Alonso nearly wipes out Charles Leclerc.
Yeah.
So nearly wipes out. I think Fernando has reacted to what's in front of him, although
you nearly got
aerial,
your first ever minus grade.
Yeah.
Wiping out Leclerc.
Although the aerial doesn't look like Fernando's going to make any kind of contact with the car ahead. He sort of jolts away, and then that's caught Charles Leclerc by surprise. And very close to another impact in turn 1. But yeah, 6 out of 10. A great qualifying from Fernando, but sadly, the car's just not good enough for him to really do much. Too slow on the straights, and they just couldn't really fight. Although, yeah, we will see where that Aston Martin is next year. The fans gave Fernando a 6 out of 10. Kimi Antonelli started the race in 17th, finished 3rd. I'm in a predicament here, Tommy, because I gave Max Verstappen a 9 out of 10 in Brazil.
You did, I was going to mention it.
Start to P3. So I have to give Kimi Antonelli a 9 out of 10. Qualifying absolutely cost him a chance of potentially fighting for the victory. We don't know. That's a question mark, whether the strategy worked out really well for him, just with the way he was forced to push the hard tyres. Maybe he just had a great feeling with them. Whatever it was, the strategy that he pulled off was amazing. However, I have to downgrade him a point, because he was knocked out in Q1. And we are left wondering what could have been. And if we're wondering what could have been through something that Kimi could have made a difference around, I have to reflect that in my score. So it is an amazing drive. I'm not giving Kimi Antonelli a 5 out of 10. I'm giving him a 9 because it wasn't perfect, but it was pretty close.
I've gone for a 9 for Kimi Antonelli. As much as I think this was another race for Kimi Antonelli, where he showed what a special driver he's becoming. It can't be a 10 because of the poor qualifying that's let him go down the order. Of course, the jump start as well.
Of course, yeah.
It was his fault, rolling forward slightly. And you look at, had the McLarens, of course, not been disqualified, he's 5th on the road. And I generally think he had the pace and showed the pace to be 2nd. So that's not him executing what the car could do. So it has to be a 9. But Kimi Antonelli, what a brilliant drive again in the race. For a rookie to be able to do that strategy and be able to bring those hard tyres back in, something his teammate was struggling with, his very experienced and very, very, very good teammate. He is really starting to show now why he was so backed by Toto Wolff in these last couple of races. We are seeing the Kimi Antonelli hype train choo-chooing.
And I hope it continues to steam along because it's brilliant to watch. The fans gave Kimi Antonelli a 10 out of 10. George Russell started the race in 4th, finished 2nd.
I've gone for a 9 out of 10 for George Russell. Made a great move on Lando. Obviously picked up the pieces from him, but it's still a brave move to go around the outside. But unfortunately for him, struggled quite a bit on his tyres, but still a great result to be, P3 on the road, which ended up being promoted to P2. So another very respectable and good drive from George to bag some more points for his championship tally.
I have also gone for a 9 out of 10 for George. Mercedes weren't as good, or at least maybe in the hands of George, than what we were expecting coming into Vegas from last year, where Mercedes secured a 1-2. But I have to give George a 9 because he finished in a really good position, but also he was managing a steering problem from lap 5. And he wasn't, I don't know whether the steering problem was directly linked to how he was managing his tyres, because we know just how fragile they are, but either way, despite those sort of drop-offs that he had in both stints, he was still able to bring home a podium finish. And it's just another George Russell performance. The fans gave George Russell a 9 out of 10. Yuki Tsunoda started the race from the pit lane, finished 12th. This is a difficult grade because Helmut Marko actually apologised to Yuki Tsunoda for whatever they did wrong in qualifying, something to do with the tyre pressures or something that they did on Yuki's car meant that he couldn't do anything in qualifying. He's only ended up 14th on the road and finished obviously 12th with the disqualifications. His teammate has won the race by 20 seconds. It's a 4 out of 10. It's a 4 out of 10 for Yuki. I can't give him any higher than that. It is still poor in comparison to his teammate Max. I have to judge him on what the Red Bull is possible with. It is a shame about quali for sure. But my cynical brain is going, realistically, how much higher was he actually going to qualify though? That's why I'm thinking. Those were very difficult conditions, and it's something you don't know, right? You either believe that he was going to qualify in the top 10 or you don't. And I just don't think that, judging by what we've seen for the majority of this year, Yuki just doesn't have a handle of that car, sadly, and no one does. Made a bit of progress, but was very much just stuck in midfield battles where he didn't want to be.
I've gone for a 3 out of 10 for Yuki Tsunoda. I know, driver rating bingo of you don't know what it's really like, but as you say, I have to judge him as we did with Liam Lawson, as we did with Sergio Perez. We have to judge in comparison to his teammate. And yes, he's been shafted by the sound of it in qualifying, where he started from the pit lane. But then equally, Kimi Antonelli has started way down the order and made it through. Lewis Hamilton made it through to points, and Yuki Tsunoda has not really done anything. To be 12th in a Grand Prix where where your teammates won the race and both McLarens have been disqualified, and you're still not close to the points. It's unfortunately just not good enough, and it's going to be a sad end to Yuki Tsunoda's F1 career, I think. It seems. It
does seem that way, doesn't it? The fans gave Yuki a 4 out of 10. Max Verstappen started the race in 2nd, finished 1st.
I've gone for a 10 out of 10 for Max Verstappen. Shock.
What?
What? Brilliant drive. Managed it at the front. Had quite a bit of pressure from Russell at the start, but kind of weathered the storm. And just, comfortably won the race after that moment from Lando where he locked up, seized the opportunity, and took victory. And of course, as we know with the disqualification, a very, very important victory to kind of thrust him back into a championship contention, which is making me very nervous.
Did that make you feel unwell saying that out loud?
As a pessimistic
it does. Tommy.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it? I still can't get over that this happened.
It's not real. Yeah, it can't be. This must all be a joke, and we're just being filmed. I have gone for a 10 out of 10 for Max Verstappen as well. He looked like he was covered off by Lando going into turn 1. Lando then, of course, we all know what happened, went really wide, and then after that, Max looked, I'd say after the sort of first phase of the first stint, unstoppable. George was on the back of him, and we were thinking, this is a George Russell victory. all day long. But Max was able to keep his tyres in a phenomenal shape and then started to drive away from George, and it was comfortable from then. So pretty perfect from Max, barring obviously not getting pole position, but he still very much deserves a 10. Front row of the grid to P1. Well done, Max Verstappen. The fans gave him a 10 as well. Lewis Hamilton started the race in 19th, finished 8th. I am going to go for a 5 out of 10 for Lewis Hamilton, and it can't be any higher. I know he scored 4 points. I know I tried to say he was good surprise, but that was banter. It was a poor weekend once again for Hamilton. It would have been 10th without those McLarens being disqualified. 1 point when Charles Leclerc did pretty good things. And also as well, Hamilton was in a decent spot after lap 1. The chaos had ensued, and he was on he was in a pretty brilliant position. But sadly for him, there were mistakes out there. We saw it. We saw him running wide occasionally and couldn't make it through cars that we expect him to sort of not breeze by, but make the moves maybe a little bit sooner. I genuinely thought Hamilton was on for a really good result, especially when he came in from the hards onto the mediums. Turns out the mediums was actually a worse tyre than the hards for the race. But still, he literally qualified last. He qualified last. He drove over the bollard on an outlap, which I still am absolutely mystified watching that. And also as well, I am downgrading him for the fact that my understanding, right, of this quali, bailing on the last lap is that he didn't actually realise where the lap time ended and begun. Because he said there was red lights on the gantry, but the split second where he goes over the line, there is no red lights. Because the red lights was further down the straight. So Hamilton has, just made an error and thought that the quali session was over when it wasn't. And he could have made it through Q1 quite easily, and then you never know what happens. So it's a 5.
I've gone for a 5 for Lewis Hamilton as well. A poor weekend. To qualify last, he's had some bad qualifyings this year and some terrible moments, but I think that the headline of, being the first Ferrari driver since 2009 to qualify dead last on pace is shocking, and another kind of... No, it's Giancarlo Fisichella, actually.
I wasn't.
I feel like I'm doing Challenge Tommy. And the fact that Hamilton had a really poor qualifying, but then made up for it. Of course, potentially there was some damage there from Albon's move that's maybe cost him a little bit in the race. But you'd think maybe he'd push Hulkenberg a little bit more, despite this, and the way he was so dejected after the race and qualifying just looks like a broken man, and it's really sad to see because this is not what I was so excited to see Hamilton at Ferrari. It was such an exciting thing, to see one of the most and the most statistical GOAT of Formula One drive for the most legendary team, and it's been an absolute disaster. So it's such a shame.
It has been a disaster, and I echo your thoughts. I was so excited as well. You would have seen it at the start of the year when we were waiting for Hamilton in red and all this sort of stuff, and the worst season he's ever put down, and I don't think it's going to change in the last 2 races. The fans gave Lewis a 6. Charles Leclerc started the race in 9th, finished 4th.
I've gone for an 8 out of 10 for Charles Leclerc. Another strong drive from him. Add this to the many, many, many drivers of using this phrase of what might have been, because had it been a dry qualifying, I think this is a completely different story. I think Charles Leclerc has got the pace to do it. And I just want to talk about something with this Ferrari wet weather thing that we've said a few times now. This is the first time I've seen Charles Leclerc really outspoken and actually speak about this whole wet weather thing. And after the race, he said that the wet weather pace was effing embarrassing, and he basically went on to say that ever since I've joined Ferrari, we just can't drive in the wet. And it's crazy because there was I saw a thing about Carlos Sainz and how he's had really poor performances in wet weather, and people questioning is he a decent wet weather driver and stuff like that. He's now in a Williams and he's put it 3rd on the grid in a wet session, and someone was and I've had the same thoughts with Charles Leclerc. Is he not a particularly good wet weather driver. And then someone shared like a clip when he was at Sauber and put in a brilliant qualifying in Brazil. And it's just crazy that Ferrari just can't, as soon as there's rain, Ferrari just like absolutely useless. So I think the fact that he's actually managed P4, of course, he benefited a couple of McLaren disqualifications, but it's actually not a bad result in the end. But I think had it been a dry qualifying, we genuinely could have seen Charles Leclerc fighting at the front. I truly believe that.
I am torn between a 7 and an 8 for Charles Leclerc.
Wow.
I am going to give Charles Leclerc a 7. It's close to an 8, but it's got to be a 7 because it's not that good of a weekend, and I guess he has been hampered quite a lot by the car. He said, "I'm pushing like an animal." That's why I wanted to give him an 8 because I'm like, he's clearly putting quali laps every single time. He said that himself, but it's not been the greatest of weekends for Charles. And had he qualified better, I think I would have easily put that up to maybe where it's acceptable. But maybe it's also coming from a place of sadness that I've come into Vegas expecting Charles Leclerc to potentially win, and he's qualified 9th and finished 6th on the road and had to benefit from 2 disqualifications. So that's where it's coming from. It's sad. That 7 is at Ferrari, not Charles. Charles, I know you're trying, and we love you dearly, but I'm just sad to see that this was our last attempt at a win, and this is what transpired. The fans gave Charles an 8. Oscar Piastri started the race in 5th and was disqualified. Well, here we go. So I'm going to say first and foremost, I am not downgrading either driver for being disqualified. Millimetres on the plank, 0.1 of a millimetre on a plank is a team thing.
No, they would have been 20. They would have been 20th. The car would have been so slow without that.
It's the same
1 millimetre thicker.
It's the same group that said about George Russell and that he would have actually finished 20th in Spa when he won that time, but then got disqualified. I am going to give Oscar Piastri a 6 out of 10. It's an underwhelming performance. Yes, you look on paper and he's finished 7 seconds behind Lando, but Lando was literally, he lost 13, 14 seconds in the last 4 laps because he was trying to not wear his plank down. So it has to be a 6 for Oscar because I genuinely believe McLaren could have won that race. Of course, we'll get onto Lando shortly, but McLaren had the pace for sure, and Oscar once again just seeming baffled as to how to drive this car now, which is and almost every single post-race, post-quali interview, he doesn't know, and that's the real concern still, that Oscar doesn't know why he's not making the time up. Of course, he was unlucky in turn 1 with the Liam Lawson accidental dive bomb, whatever we want to label it. But even after that, I haven't read anything about Oscar having damage after that. I'm pretty sure it was just wheel-to-wheel contact. But yeah, it just didn't really have the speed to make any inroads. He lost out to Antonelli, who of course had that 5-second penalty, but still was beaten by both Mercedes on the road. So yeah, it's a 6.
I have gone for a 6 out of 10 for Oscar Piastri. Yep, not on his teammates' pace again, really disappointing. And yeah, you look to as you know, it goes without saying that the disqualification doesn't affect the grade of what they achieved anyway, because that is not making a difference in terms of how they've performed. And yeah, it's such a shame for Oscar. Even watching a guy who I think, when he was at his most confident best in that kind of middle point of the season and near the start of the season when he was driving so well and looked so good in that McLaren and was winning all these races, one of, if not the best kind of wheel-to-wheel driver and making incredible overtakes. And instead, he's sat behind Antonelli lap after lap, and I know it was quite tough to overtake, but Antonelli had very worn tyres, and we saw that the McLaren did have decent pace. So a 6 for Oscar Piastri.
The fans gave Oscar a 6 as well. Lando Norris started the race from 1st, disqualified, but 2nd on the road.
Ooh, this one's tough. I'm going to go for an 8 out of 10. It's between an 8 and a 9. He should have won the race, in my opinion, and it all went wrong at the start. They have to downgrade him before. It was a big mistake. Not his finest moment when he's been driving superbly well, and actually his starts have been really, really impressive. But it was a big mistake to lose 2 positions, and it meant that, I think it cost him the victory, even though they'd been disqualified anyway, which is an odd thing to kind of be talking about in driver ratings. But that's why I've gone for an 8 for Lando.
I'm going to go for a... what am I going for? It's a 9. 9 out of 10 for Lando. Qualifying was absolutely sensational from him. And yes, he made a mistake in that last sector. Everybody was making mistakes, by the way, in qualifying. Everybody. And up until that point, it was, an absolutely brilliant lap in that final moment in Q3 where all the pressure's on his shoulders. And then he delivered a pole position, even despite the mistake. So I think that deserves its commendation. And then as for the start, I commended him in the post-race podcast, and I'll do it again, that I like the fact that he went really aggressive on Max. He made a mistake. That's why it's not a 10. Am I going to downgrade him 2 points for a small error into turn 1, which he then managed to get one of the positions back anyway? And I think it did cost him a chance at the victory. I reckon he probably would have been the favourite to win had he stayed ahead of Max out of turn 1, but I think it would have been very close. So, I'm downgrading him for that, but I feel it's a bit harsh to do it 2 points because it's close, but I think I'm more comfortable with a 9 out of 10 for Lando for this weekend. The fans gave him an 8. So, finally, who is our P1? My P1 is going to be Carlos Sainz. I think he genuinely executed the entire weekend flawlessly. Max Verstappen didn't get pole position, otherwise he's probably getting my P1. So I'm going to give it to Carlos because I'm just happy to see him thriving.
The only two I've given a 10 for is Carlos and Max. I think it's very close between them. Both drove excellent races, but it's got to be Carlos. The qualifying is one of the best of the year for sure. An absolutely sensational qualifying and an excellent result for Carlos. So I'll go for Carlos P1.
All right then, that is it. Thank you everybody for tuning in to this episode of Driver Ratings. We'll be back literally next week because Qatar and then Abu Dhabi the following week after to finish this F1 season. It's frantic. Can't wait for it. It's going to be exciting. Tell me what your final thoughts.
My final thoughts are well done, Vegas. Enjoyed the light show. See you next year.
Tommy's brain is powering down, everybody. We've seen it live. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you soon. Lots of love. Bye.
Bye.